One part of President Obama's plan to fight back against ISIS is to arm and aid Syrian rebels, the moderate Syrians fighting against the Bashar al-Assad regime, to arm them, to help them, and to then fight ISIS through them or with them. Now, people are not sure if that's a great idea. I mean, we don't know these groups very well. How can we trust them? And that was a question that was asked to John McCain, who's always on cable news. He was on Fox, and they asked him, how can we trust these people? This was his response.
Who's going to vet these people?
Well, first of all, I vetted a number of them because I know them. Second of all, it's just an excuse for people who don't want to act to say that these people are not to be trusted. Look, they've been, I can't tell you what they have been through. The hundreds and even thousands of that have been killed and slaughtered with these barrel bombs and tortured to death by Bashar Assad. They can be trusted. There are groups of them to be trusted. They aren't as good as they used to be because of our failure to help them. And they can be vetted, and we can do it quickly. And obviously there are some risks. But what's our other option here? If someone who says we don't want to do it because we can't trust the Free Syrian Army, then what is your option, sir and ma'am, in how we're going to attack ISIS in an effective fashion? And by the way, they got to be able to attack Bashar Assad as well, who is working with the Iranians to destroy them.
So John McCain, he has seen these people. He's looked into their eyes. He has read their souls. They're good people. We can trust them. We can work with them tomorrow and the next day and a year from now. They will be our allies through which we fight ISIS. Unfortunately, some of the groups he's talking about there, some of the groups he's vetted, have already announced over this weekend that they have a truce with ISIS. The groups that we're supposed to be arming and helping have a truce with ISIS. To make it a little bit more clear, ISIS and a number of moderate and hardline rebel groups have agreed not to fight each other so that they can focus on taking down the regime of Syrian President Bashar Assad. The leader of the Free Syrian Army said Saturday that the group would not take part in U.S. plans for destroying the Islamic State, ISIS, until it got assurances on toppling Assad. So it's not to say that in the future we couldn't possibly get them back on our side, and this isn't all of these Syrian rebel groups. There's still large groups that could work with us, or at the very least have a common enemy in ISIS. But already, just days after the plan was announced, some of those groups are now saying, look, like, it's great that you want to fight against ISIS and everything, and they do seem kind of crazy, but we're really more interested in getting rid of Assad, and if ISIS is willing to have a truce with us, and that makes it easier to do that, then screw you and all your freedom talk about clearing ISIS out of the Middle East. And so John McCain, like, he's willing to say anything to get us back in there. All this stuff about no boots on the ground, John McCain, he has no interest in that. Boots are totally fine with him. He's pro-footwear when it comes to our intervention in the Middle East. And yet right after he's saying he's vetted them and we can trust them, they turn on us, or at least they're not willing to work with us. This is one group today, or one small group of groups. What about tomorrow? What about a week from now or a year from now? I mean, that reporter on Fox News is basically saying, how can we trust them? And they don't mean like, can they sleep over and not rob us? I mean, if we give them training and we give them weapons, how do we know that they're not going to use those against civilians or against American armed forces? And this group is now going to have a truce. I mean, they could be fighting against us in a month, or more groups could join up with them. And every rocket we give them, every AK-47 we give them, I know we don't use those in our military, but every assault rifle we give them, if we give them any vehicles or anything like that, that could be used against us in the future. They've already shown they're willing to do it after just a couple of days. Now, look, I'm not 100% against engaging ISIS in some form in Syria. I think that for the most part, although I hate private military contractors getting rich off of us doing these bombing runs and things like that, I think that we can do some of that, especially if it helps Syrian civilians who are in an absolutely horrible situation. Most of them have been displaced at this point. But the idea that John McCain can make one trip over to Syria and look him in the eyes and know who we can trust and who we can't trust, it is ridiculous. And the news of this weekend has made that entirely clear. It's not a lesson I expect John McCain to learn from or understand, but I think that you are a little bit wiser when it comes to understanding our past interventions in that area and the likely outcome of future ones. Like, we have to protect our interests. That doesn't necessarily mean teaming up with anyone who today says they're willing to be our ally and tomorrow is at least colluding with the enemy.